I just want to cover over some things about COVID and how we want to act responsibly into the coming months. Everything's still changing. It's been a bit more settled in recent weeks, but there's a lot that we don't know. And COVID rates are actually 30 times higher than they were a year ago, strangely. Last August, there were very few COVID cases, and at the moment we're getting something like 37,000 a day. And there's concerns that as we go into the autumn and kids go back to school, those rates may get higher. Most of the cases at the moment are the Delta variant. But one of the concerns that the government has, anxieties, and a lot of people have, is that there might become a new variant that will be more infectious or more dangerous than the Delta variant is. So first bit of good news is that the vaccine, if you've had the vaccine, it seems to have a good protection for most people against the Delta variant, even though it wasn't designed for that. And so we've got to, I think in our area we've had more than 8 out of 10 people have had, 8 out of 10 adults I should say, have had one vaccine, and 7 out of 10 have had 2 vaccines, are fully vaccinated. And in the country as a whole, 9 out of 10 have got some sort of immunity to COVID in their bloodstreams. Now that's very positive, because what it means is if people get the Delta variant, and even if you've been vaccinated you can get the Delta variant, if you get the Delta variant you've got some resistance already inside you. The latest thinking, I don't know whether you read the BBC News or look at things like that, the latest idea is that if you've had vaccination and get a dose of COVID, it's more likely to give you stronger protection. So we know that people like Elaine's son, who had COVID earlier in the year and then had his vaccination, has probably got a stronger immune system because of it. He wasn't very ill with it, thankfully. But if you've had it, you're quite likely to have good immunity against it. Unfortunately, there's still people who get this long COVID, which is quite unpleasant, chronic fatigue and exhaustion. It's not an illness I would recommend to anyone. I'm not sure I would recommend many illnesses to people, but the vaccine does seem to prevent more serious illness, so that's the really good news. There are a couple of big buts in terms of our going forward. As most of you probably realise, Elaine and I are not of the name it and claim it brigade of Christians. We're not the sort of people who can say, we can claim something for our health and our safety and our prosperity. Because actually I don't think Christians are immune to what the world gets. So we have to be a bit careful about that. We're completely reliant on God for our health and for our safety, but we're not immune to brokenness and tragedy. We have a hope that the coming kingdom will set us free from all of that and it all will be well. But we also recognise that, as Jesus said in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble. And to pretend that we won't, or to claim that we won't, I think is a bit unscriptural. But we do need to hold on to the goodness of God, who wants us to have peace. That's the other part of that verse, John 16:33. He wants us to have the peace. He said, "Peace I give to you." And take heart that he has overcome the world. So within this context, I just want to outline how we're going to approach COVID and try and get a balance between faith and common sense and government guidelines, which aren't always the same. And there may be further restrictions going forward. We don't know. We kind of hope not. We want to be able to meet together in person, and I think that's really important that we do that. But we want to do it safely, and in particular not put others at risk by our actions and behaviours. So I think the risks in an open air are much lower than inside. Inside, if you've got good ventilation, the risks are lower, but we have to try and manage those risks. We've not been too worried about meeting like this under the parasols. Earlier the sun came out, but I was going to call them umbrellas with the weather that we've been having. So our final service like this will be on the 5th of September. It's 2 weeks' time, and the 4th of our series, which will be Come to Mission. So don't run away, because we're on mission. We need to be part of that. But after that, we plan to meet face to face and maybe try and get a hybrid element. So we actually record it or broadcast it or Zoom it so that people can actually see what's going on and be part of it, even if they can't be with us in person. We're still trying to work that out. But we will start our prayer meetings on Zoom. That's great. It actually works really well. And it's as Hilary said, it's much more comfortable to pray. You can turn your camera off and stay in bed or whatever you want to do. But we want to encourage you to follow 3 pieces of advice as we move forward about Inside Gathering. The first is that if you have any symptoms of any viral infection, please don't come. This is less for your sake than for the protection of others. The second is, you can get lateral flow tests free from chemists or from the government on government website, and do those tests. And I would suggest you do those tests before you come. And if it's positive, don't come. And if it's positive, you need to go and get a proper PCR test, which is much more accurate. But if it's positive, don't come. And if it's negative, then at least you know that you're safe and hopefully not going to give anything over. Because with the Delta variant, you can catch it even though you've had the vaccine, and you can pass it on to others. So it's quite important that we look after one another and care for one another. The third measure is to continue to observe sensible guidance with regard to social distancing, cleanliness, hugs. We didn't put it is there, the hand gel there. Good, we did. And we just ask you to consider others, and in preference to your own wishes. So actually to do it for the sake of others. The last thing that I want to do is to pass on an infection unwittingly to people, and perhaps unintentionally harm them. So